China dominates. They're the world's leader in steel production, trade, shipbuilding, and high-speed rail. In fact, they're the number one in so many categories that their physical economy outshines the US by miles. Sure, GDP gives us one perspective, but it doesn't capture the full extent of China's dominance in the real, tangible world. And now, with the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa surpassing the G7 in purchasing power, the global balance of power is shifting even further. The US is no longer in the driver's seat. So is a tariff war really the best way forward? I'm Francisco, PhD researcher and MIT innovator. And today we're breaking down why tariffs aren't enough to match China's industrial strength, and why the real solution lies in reindustrialization and deregulation. The truth is, America's manufacturing base isn't prepared to compete. Building domestic capacity on the scale of China dominances doesn't happen overnight. Tariffs might nudge companies to produce more at home, acting as a kind of tax incentive, but they're only part of one picture. Regulation, on the other hand, is the true bottleneck. Without permits and the freedom to build, you can produce anything. It's not a question of more or less. It's a question of zero. You make nothing. If the US wants to challenge China's dominance, it needs more than tariffs. It needs a complete overhaul of its industrial policies, starting with deregulation, because tariffs might boost revenue temporarily, but only deregulation can unlock the capacity to truly compete. The real question is, does America have the will to rebuild? Let's just check the numbers. They're very clear how China has become the world's manufacturing superpower. Check the latest numbers. It's 31.2%, and the US is almost half of it. Then if you think about traditional manufacturing superpowers such as Japan and Germany, they're 1/3 of the US, each one of them. So what is going on and why China manufacturing is so impressive? And we're gonna go through all the statistics so you can know why Trump, even though he talks a lot, he knows that the data is not supporting the US. So first of all, there is a guy which I love him on Twitter. He just put something very interesting. In one segment, Jesse Waters laments on how we shipped our manufacturing job overseas. Okay, so yes, a lot of the rhetoric from the US, both citizens, the president, and everyone says, okay, why we manufacture overseas? We should go back. But then, in other segments, he promotes Oda Brothers ties. And Jesse went out and bought one of the ties. The question from Derek is very simple. Where was it made? Well, China. It's also pure polyester. So it's very interesting how the contradiction from the people saying things and the reality. And then let's see how it's gonna be still changing. So global industrial production, check it in the left in the year 2000. America was 25%, Japan 11%, and Germany 8%. In that chain, only China had 6%. So if we show this graph on the left to someone, they will say, well, there's no possibility from China to achieving anything. Well, now see how the projection, which is on par to the growth, it will put China on 45% of the world global industrial production. That's incredible. That's part of the policies that China have implemented in the past 4 decades. And then, what is one of the reasons? Well, the cost of electricity. I want you to look at the top. UK and Germany, very expensive electricity. And you know what happens? If you have expensive electricity, The industrial manufacturing will say, well, I need to move elsewhere or reduce my manufacturing power. But go down in the graph. The US, very competitive. That's the reason it's one of the largest in the world. China, very competitive. Russia, very competitive. Look, the lowest from all these developed countries, from all these manufacturing superpowers, the cheapest is in China. Now the people in Britain should ask why we're not increasing our manufacturing output. Just check your energy prices and then you will start learning anything about graphs and data. And this is one of the most important elements we should check. Okay? So the International Federation of Robotics just published what is called the robot density in the manufacturing industry. And this is very important because manufacturing superpowers such as Germany, Japan, and the US have always used robots in their factories. It's simple because you need them. In the world, the average is 162. The average in North America is 197, and the average in the EU is 219 per 10,000 employees. I want you to look to the left, which are the top countries in the world: Korea, Singapore, and China. And at this rhythm, China will be the biggest because when you check this graph from 20 years ago, China was in the right. Why? They have been investing. And it's one of the few countries in the world that have developed homegrown chip lithography machines. This is very important because it's not developing the manufacturing industrial output, but also how you can create the machines that create the machines. That's the interesting thing. And then you check and you just Google it, any interesting video about China output. I just want to show you how simple are things. So in this video, you're gonna see a robot manufacturer in China, not one of the biggest, that literally he's gonna show us how he's training the robot. So he turns on the machine, then it shows the movements that the robot should learn. That's it. It's very simple. It's a human moving the hand and showing the robot how, for example, it should clean a boat or how it should press things. It completed the process, click, okay. Now we go to the robot and just look the movements of that robot. They're incredible. And those are robots made in China. So this is the interesting thing. Before we have robots made in Germany, made in Switzerland, made in Japan, and made in the US. Now Chinese robots are altering the business. And this is very important because they not only gonna sell in China, they're gonna sell these robots around the world. And you can see like those crazy videos of the factory acceptances because we have seen how Elon Musk is promoting his robots, which will be great. How other American companies, but now if you literally go and see the robots in China, you get just crazy. For example, as part of China One Belt One Road initiative, remember that they have been funding projects around the world. One of those projects was the largest port in Peru. But the most interesting thing about the Puerto Chancay in Peru is that they're gonna automate all the process. So it's not only those robots that are doing things, but all the process in that port will be automated. But I'm not talking only in China. I'm talking in countries that China is establishing relationships. And if those countries are start seeing the benefits, what do you think these countries will start doing? And I want to show you something very important that was shared by the Secretary of Defense of the United States. And they calculated some manufacturing workforce conditions. And one of the major problems, and you can see in this graph, is like some areas with manufacturing output don't have enough people. Even we have 300 million inhabitants, their skills and training are not on par with what is needed. So there is a gap that needs to be filled. And one part to be filled is with good migration, not with bad migration. Good migration is always good. But now let's go to automobile production by country. Check this graph right now. one of each three cars in the world is produced in China. 12% in the US, 10% in Japan, and in Germany only 5.7%. So this is very interesting because now everyone is still talking about the US century. What are the data showing us? Like, that's the key question. Like, you can have a lot of rhetoric and nice quotes, but then you check the data and the trends. Those are very important. That's what I like to do. So if you haven't subscribed to Francisco Money, now is the time to subscribe because I cover all these topics. I analyze the data. And if you want to learn how to invest, you need to understand the macroeconomical factors, the microeconomical factors, and also what are the elements that affect your stocks, your crypto, your real estate, or your other investments. So please just follow, subscribe, and make any comment. And if you just comment anything, I literally will make a video about it, if it makes sense, of course. Check this graph. Check the year 2000 on the left. What are we seeing? This is called global share of automatic car production by country and by region. The red line is China, the blue line is the US, and the other blue, like dark blue, is the US, and the light blue will be Europe. What is the trend here? It's very clear. Europe, Japan, and the US have gone down. The worst has been in Europe, of course, because of very bad policies from very bad leaders. That's the reason they're pretty bad at electing leaders in Europe. I believe since they not, I believe it's, the data is literally showing us what is happening. So check that. Europe had 35% and now just 13%. That's the crisis. And if you ask anyone in 2000, well, do you think China will be an important player in 2024? They will say no. But check the data. And you probably say, but Francisco, come on, we have Tesla and we have Waymo and we have the big companies. Well, let's check the data again. This video was filmed in Shenzhen, China, what is called like the Silicon Valley, but more the hardware valley, we'll call it. The interesting thing, you can see three elements. Number one, this is a car created by Huawei. And when you start thinking about Huawei, you think, man, Huawei is just phones. Okay, then it moved from phones to laptops. Okay, it moves from laptops to TVs. Okay, and then to robots cleaning my house. Okay, and then cars. So now, the autonomous driving function that was filmed during 40 minutes, it was completely autonomous. This is high competition with Tesla because Tesla, even though has an amazing technology, they have limits in terms of car productions. While all these companies, because of the manufacturing superpower that is China and is gonna keep growing, they will be able to deliver more cars to more people. And top engineers from the big companies like DIY, like Tencent, like Baidu in China, they really enjoy those cars because of the technology that are using. So this is part of the future of car manufacturing and autonomous driving around the world. Because if you have enough economic output, if you have a manufacturing superpower, and if people are already used to the Huawei and to their phones, and they just have the card that seamlessly connect, because before now we have the iPhone that connects with your computer. Okay, that's cool. The iPhone that connects with your laptop and that connects with your iPad. Okay, but what about your phone that connects with your car? That's cooler. That's cooler. And that's being able in China by some countries, companies like Huawei, like Xiaomi, they're getting into cars. It's incredible. The famous project from Apple, which they should have done it, has not been able to be delivered. And that's the challenge. And this is the biggest opportunity. So if you like this series, you can go into this video. I did a video about gold in China. I did a video about the 2 billion fund government bond that they launched in Saudi Arabia. And I'm going to make a series of videos. If it hasn't come, just put the notification bell that I'm going to talk about all the other areas that China has become a global superpower. And just to finalize in these elements, um, just think about this, how it has growth, the annual production, okay, from almost 90 million to 21 million. Germany actually, it decreased um, in those numbers. And if you see here, this is how it has increased. So the top 10 automotive exporters, it went from 0.3% to 8% in the top three automotive exporters. And if you see here, the EV sales, which is one of the areas that everyone believes the US can compete well, look, check BYD from China. So you have BYD from China, Tesla from the US, then you have BMW from Germany, then you have GAC Ion from China, Volkswagen from Germany, SMGB from China, Mercedes from Germany, and Li Auto from China. So what is showing? In the top 7 EV sales producers in the world, 4 are from China, top 8. 4 are from China, 3 are from Germany, 1 is from the United States. Think about that when you're analyzing data. Think about that, who will dominate the world of cars and manufacturing in the next decades. Thank you very much for following.